Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. And I am seeing you once again with lecture 18 of drama 2, that is modern drama. What we did in our last lecture, we talked about the themes of the play Waiting for Godot, written by Samuel Beckett. What we are going to do today, we are going to talk about the use of symbolism in the play, and what is the inner tone, style and significance of the title of Waiting for Godot. And we will try to analyze the plot as a tragic drama, and we will also discuss the social acceptance of the play, and we'll do some critical analysis for that matter. Alright, so starting with symbolism and imagery. Beckett says that he did not use anything, any person or any object as symbol. However, people are free to interpret if they can. Someone said sometimes there is more to lit than meets the eye. So there is a lot between the lines. Although there is a lot in the lines, however, a lot more in between the lines as well. So what kind of symbols are being used in the play? There are many vivid symbols that one can easily understand and can see how they are affecting the meaning of the play as well, the message of the play as well. Some symbols that I will discuss today with you are going to be duality, the twice, the thing, the figure of things being two or in pair, the tree, nightfall and the rising moon, Valdemir's song, the carrot, Lucky's dance, the hats, boots and vaporizer, and the smell, activity of smell. Well, so let's talk about duality. What kind of symbolism, the use of symbol we find in this activity where everything is in twos or everything is in pair or everything is in getting repeated twice. If you look at the play, everything you will find in pairs. This event of happening things twice is in almost everything. Waiting for Godot is chock full of pairs. There is Vladimir and Estragon, a pair, the two thieves, pair, the boy and his brother, pair, Pozo and Lucky, a pair, Ken and Abel, another pair, and of course the two acts of the play itself is significant in that matter. With these pairs comes the repeated notion of arbitrary, 50 by 50% chances. One thief is saved, the other damned, but for no clear reasons. So it's not only the occurrences of events and the characters, even the notions, the choices, the decisions, the articulations are repetitive and twice repeating in nature. If Vladimir and Estragon try to hang themselves, their bow may or may not break. One may die, one may not die. Godot may or may not come to save them. So this may or may not again is a occurrence of twice. Then in the Bible, Cain's sacrifice was rejected and Abel's accepted for no discernible reason. It's minor, but check out Estragon's line in Act 1. My left lung is very weak, but my right lung is sound as a bell. More pairs, more arbitrary damnation. Even the tone of Waiting for Godot is filled with duality. Two persons' arguments, back and forth questions, disagreement versus agreement, questions and often inadequate answers. So everything is happening in pairs, couples, twice, a cycle of twos. Alright, so our next symbol can be the tree as one very vivid symbol. The tree is the only distinct piece of the setting we can see, so we are pretty sure it matters and it means something. Also, if you check out the painting that inspired Beckett, you'll see that a big tree features prominently in the background. Right off the bat, you've got the biblical stuff. Jesus was crucified on a cross, but that cross is sometimes referred to as a tree, as in Jesus was nailed to that tree. And then that Vladimir and Estragon contemplate hanging themselves from the tree is likely a reference to the crucifixion, the Christ crucifixion as well. But it also parodies the religious significance, since Jesus died for the sins of others. However, Vladimir and Estragon are dying for nothing. So there is that nothing word again and again, and you just can't get rid of this in this play at least. Alright, but you can also think of the two men, not just Jesus, but rather as the two thieves crucified along with Jesus. And then this fits quite nicely with Gospel's tale as Vladimir tells it. One thief is saved and the other damned. So Didi and Gogo are looking at a 50-50 chance, and probably that is why they do not take up the courage of hanging themselves. What if they really die? And who is going to die if it's a chance of 50%? The certainty into uncertainty, or the uncertainty into certainty, that stems from inconsistency between the four Gospels is fitting too, since Vladimir can't be certain if Godot is coming to save either one of them. Uncertainty again. Repetition again. There is more. Vladimir reports that he was told to wait for Godot by the tree. Now who told it so? So this should be reassuring. It means the men are in the right place. Right or wrong, because they a time comes when they are questioning themselves if they are in the right place to meet Godot, or whether it's the right day or not. As Estragon points out, they are not sure if this is the right tree, and come to think of it, they can't even be sure if this is a tree or not. It looks like a shrub. So uncertainty even in the certainty. So now what we find to be completely baffling is the trees randomly sprouting of leaves in between Act 1 and Act 2, and it's just a time of one night that passed by. This is regeneration. This is called regeneration, but it is hopeful, it is growth, so it is life. And that doesn't sound anything like waiting for Godot, because waiting for Godot is all about waiting, is all about decay, is all about nothingness. Especially when you look at how everything else degenerates from Act 1 to Act 2, we are thinking in particular of posers going blind and lucky getting mute, as well as Gogo and Didi's increasing uncertainty and suffering. So this pair getting blind, deaf and dumb is a kind of decay. However, this event only is event of regeneration. So what gives? Take a look at Vladimir's line early in Act 1 when he says, "Hope deferred maketh thee something sick." Who said that? As we have mentioned, Vladimir is referring to the biblical proverb here that goes a little something like this: hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. See what? Tree of life. So the tree's random blooming would suggest that it is something of a tree of life. And according to the proverb, that means a desire has been fulfilled. However, of course, as far as we can tell, no desire have been fulfilled. Nothing at all. This could mean that the proverb is completely without truth and reason, and probably would have been used ironically here, which fits with Godot's general stance on religion. Then again, the tree's sprouting leaves could be an ironic symbol, pointing out that far from fulfilled desires, hopes have been deferred yet another day. Much like Vladimir's ironic claim in Act 2 that he keeps on saying, things have changed here since yesterday. However, we can clearly see that nothing at all has been changed, or it could be something else altogether. So the second symbol that we are going to analyze is nightfall. It's a basically nightfall serves the role of a barrier between these two acts, and the rising of moon. While Vladimir and Estragon wait for Godot, they also wait for nightfall. For some reason, again arbitrary and uncertain. You do not know what is the reason, what is the meaning. They don't have to wait for him once the night has fallen. Probably this is one reason. They want to stop waiting now, but they need a reason for that. They need to reason to make this choice. The classic interpretation is that night is equal to dark and dark is equal to death. So the falling of night is their desire of being dead, their desire of leaving hope, leaving waiting aside. And this desire they have been showing in black and white as well, telling each other that they will hang themselves with tree. The falling of night is as much a reprieve from daily suffering as death is from the suffering of a lifetime. There's also the issue of the moon, as it appears, its appearance in the sky is the real signal that night has come and the men can stop waiting for Godot. So it's a kind of signal of hope for their death. So hope is again enveloped in dark. Estragon, in one of his wicked smart comments, the moon is pale for weariness of climbing heaven and gazing on the likes of us. Though the man remembers nothing of yesterday, he does in this moment seem to comprehend the endless repetition of his life. He sounds so sensible that he could not sound this insensible throughout play. And if the moon is weary just from watching, imagine what this says about the predicament of the men themselves. And the next symbol is of the carrot, the only vegetable apart turnip that they have to eat. Carrots and turnips are in one sense just a gauge reel for Vladimir and Estragon's comic bits, but we were interested in their disagreement over the vegetable. Funny, Estragon comments as he munches, "The more you eat, the worse it gets." Vladimir quickly disagrees, adding that for him it's just the opposite. On the one hand, this could be a completely meaningless conversation, just for nothing. The point is simply that Vladimir is in disagreement, playing at opposites, adding to the bickering duality between himself and Gogo. On the other hand, there is a meaning associated with conversation. The carrot could be about the meaning of life. Exclamation point. Okay, so the carrot probably isn't about the meaning of life, but it could be a hint as to the difference between the way Vladimir and Estragon live their lives, their perception regarding life. Vladimir's subsequent comment, an addendum to his carrot claim, is that he gets used to the musk, going along. He resigns himself to banality. Estragon, on the other hand, varies as time passes, much like the very moon he observes in Act 2. When Pozzo later dishes about smoking, he claims that a second pipe is never as sweet as the first one is, but it sweets just the same. This is a third and distinct answer to the carrot question. So, carrot is symbolic here for its nothingness, purposelessness, meaningless, tastelessness of life. Now, Lucky's dance. Dance is another symbolic representation of Beckett's imagination here. When Lucky is commanded to dance in Act 1, Pozzo reveals that he calls his dance the net, adding he thinks he's entangled in a net. You would think a guy tied up on a rope leash would feel confined enough. Of course, the image of Lucky writing in an imaginary net is is a lasting image for the play as a whole, and especially for the plight of Vladimir and Estragon, who, as we have said before, are confined in a prison, or perhaps a net of their own imaginations. So Lucky's dance is very important. We have two important points to note here. One, that Lucky's dance is called the net, his movement as if he is prisoned. Secondly, we are told by the other characters that Lucky is not as good as in dancing as he has ever been. That means that there would have been something else about the net or Lucky's movement that is not discussed here in this scene for several reasons. And then at one point his age is mentioned as well. So there might be a connection between these two things. Now these three objects, the hats, the boots and the vaporizer, what kind of symbols are they? There seems to be no shortage of inane props in Waiting for Godot, and these three have one thing in common. What is that? They are all absurd objects on which the men have developed irrational dependence. Lucky cannot think without his bowler. Pozo needs his vaporizer to speak. Estragon seems condemned to forever take his boots on and off and on, as does Vladimir with his hat. This is another great combination of the tragic and the comic. The situation is hilarious when you watch it on the screen or you watch it being audience for its arbitrariness and absurdity, but dismay at the same time, a kind of there is a sadness attached, there is tragedy attached. Then this aspect of smell that Estragon is repeatedly repelled by in Waiting for Godot. Vladimir stinks of garlic, Lucky smells like who knows what, and Pozo reeks of a fart in Act 2. It seems every time Estragon tries to get close to a person and he is repelled by their odor. It looks to us like smells represent one of the barriers to interpersonal relationships. Estragon isn't just repelled by odors, he is repelled by the humanity of those around him. There's something gritty and base about the odor of a human body, and for Estragon it's too much to handle. It's a big matter to handle. So, after having a word about the use of symbolism in Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett, we are going to see what is the setting set for the play, and how does setting contribute into the meaning that Samuel wants to convey in his writing. So a country road over the span of 2 nights, unknown time and place is basically setting outline. We are never really sure whether Act 1 and Act 2 take place in the same location. We are neither being told about it, other than the fact that Beckett describes it as such in the stage directions. We also don't know what lies off stage, since Vladimir and Estragon are always forced back onto the stage in some form or another. So what is there backstage? We don't know about it. Depending on the design of a production, the set is more or less ornate. Sometimes there is literally nothing else on stage than the actors and the tree. The effect of Beckett's minimally described set is that we have absolutely no idea where Vladimir and Estragon are, either in time or in place. Maybe the past, the future, Earth, an imaginary place in one of their heads. We just don't know about it. It's almost like uncertainty is a main theme in the play, and we as the audience experience it the same way Vladimir and Estragon do. So it's not only uncertainty of the situation, it's of place, it's of time, it's of their existence as well. We don't know whether they exist or not. Also note that the fact that the 2 men are on a road together. Where does this road lead? Again, we do not know. it's not showing a starting point or an ending point. It's a road, but it might as well be nowhere, since it becomes rather clear that Estragon and Vladimir aren't making any progress along it. This is sad, possibly even comically tragic. So the presence of the tree and a rock of some sort is apparently important, because it's a rock where they take their turns for sitting, at least according to Beckett. The setting, he says, is complete with animal, vegetable and mineral. This lends a high sense of contrivance to the play. We have already seen the metafictional quality of Waiting for Godot in certain key lines, like Pozzo's question of whether or not this is the board or stage. So this sort of artificiality of fits right in. Having all three elements present, animal, vegetable and mineral, would seem to suggest that the world of Waiting for Godot is a complete one. Nothing is missing, everything is present, and yet still the world is barren and empty. Still the world is without purpose, without meaning, without life, because characters fail to provide it with meaning through their action, rather inaction. Who is the narrator of Waiting for Godot? Can she or he read minds? And more importantly, can we trust her or him? Who is narrating the story? Though all works of literature present the author's point of view, they don't all have a narrator or a narrative voice that ties together and present the story. This particular piece of literature does not have a narrator through whose eyes or voice we learn the story. So, now a word about the genre, tone, style and the title of the play. This drama is a reflection of modernism, philosophical literature, surrealism and tragicomedy as well. Since the work is a play and the conflict is entirely expressed in emotion-revealing drama, modernism and surrealism have to do with the play's lack of real plot and its breaking from narrative traditions. Waiting for Godot is modernist in the sense that it defies classical standards, the classical standards we discussed right in the beginning. And it is surrealist in that Vladimir and Estragon's world has no clear system of logic, reality or rules, no system at all. Remember that line where Vladimir wonders aloud if he's sleeping and merely under the illusion of consciousness. That's surrealism in a nutshell. Lastly, Waiting for Godot is most definitely a work of philosophical literature, exploring the arguments of the absurd, and the universe is irrational and without meaning, and existentialism, that the solution to such irrationality is to become conscious of one's freedom and live life anyway through a series of choices and action. Notice we said that Waiting for Godot explores these themes. Whether or not it agrees with them is subject to debate. So, what is the tone for Waiting for Godot? Can we call it an ironic play, a play of satire, a play of tragedy? Take a story's temperature by studying its tone. Is it hopeful, cynical, snarky, playful? You are to answer it and substantiate your answer with evidences from the story. So what is the style of Waiting for Godot? It's bleak as well as comic. Both these adjectives are simultaneously possible. That's why they call it a tragicomedy. But what's interesting about the tone is that that isn't just bleak and comic. It's bleak because it is comic, and it is comic because it is bleak. So it's a very interesting situation. The common factor here is absurdity. Life is comic for the absurdity of turnips and carrots, but it is bleak because men waste away their days talking about turnips and carrots. So it's bleak because it talks about the unfruitfulness of life and it's comic because it talks about those things that makes it unfruitful. And what is about the title? Waiting for Godot is just that, a play about waiting. The title reflects the lack of action, or as one critic says, the less than action that fills the time normally taken up by plot. Tragicomedy is an apt description of the play's genre, since it combines the absurdly farcical with the tragically poignant melancholy of daily life. An excellent composition of words in this sentence. That 2x part of the title is significant, since duality is an important theme of the work. Of course, you'll have to actually read the play to get to that part, to understand it completely. And I hope so far you would have read it for twice at least. But I will suggest another reading. So after having a word about the writing style, tone and title, we are going to talk about the drama as tragedy, its plot type, the use of allusions and cultural references in it. Christopher Broker is a scholar who wrote that every story falls into one of 7 basic plot structures: overcoming the monster, rags to riches, the quest, voyage and return, comedy, tragedy and rebirth. Schmoop explores which of these structures fits the story like Cinderella's slipper. Now, what kind of plot is this? Where would you like to fit this plot in? Vladimir and Estragon are tragic figures throughout the play, with seemingly no control over their life situation that we saw and we analyzed. The difference between Booker's tragedy plot line and the plot line of Waiting for Godot is that no one dies and nothing really new happens. Nothing happens at all. No kind of development, good or bad. Things do go wrong, but that's not exclusive to that start and end of the play. Things have been going wrong for as long as we can imagine, and we expect that they'll continue to do so long after we leave the theater. So basically, we have the last stage of the Booker plot, destruction or death with stage, throughout the entire work. This makes sense, since the concept of change or movement, in this case from one stage to another, would be inconsistent with the stagnant world of Waiting for Godot. So, do we have any allusions or cultural references embedded in the play? When author refers to other great works, people and events, it is to remind you that when author is referring to other great works, people and events, it is usually not accidental, and it is where allusions come in action. So put on your super hat and figure out why. I want you to point out all those allusions and think what kind of meaning they are adding into the main construction. We have 3 different types of allusions here: allusions from literature, from philosophy and from mythology. Now what are they? I want you to find them out and try to give them some detail. We have a reference from literature, fear and trembling. We have a literature from Atlas, from Jupiter, Pan, the Bible. A dream deferred makes the heart sink, if you remember that dialogue. We have biblical references as well, a biblical proverb. So we have reference of Christ, we have reference of Cain and Abel, so on and so forth. So all these references are from 3 main categories: literature, philosophical references and mythological, and also some from religion as well. A word about its social acceptance. How will you analyze it? Waiting for Godot qualifies as one of Samuel Beckett's most famous works. Originally written in French in 1948, as I discussed in the first discussion on the play, Beckett personally translated the play into English, and that is of importance. The word the world premiere was held on January 5 in the Left Bank Theatre of Babylon in Paris. The play's reputation spread slowly through the word of mouth, and it soon became quite famous. So we saw so far that dramas in the modern era, almost all of them initially faced a very hard time, and most of them were banned for quite a lot of time, and they could not be played on screen, on stage. However, Waiting for Godot is a drama, although gradually and slowly, however, it started capturing people's attention right from the beginning, and it did not face a kind of negative resistance. Other productions around the world rapidly followed this drama, and this drama stood like a kind of model of absurdity, theatre of absurdist as well. The play initially failed in the United States, however, likely as a result of being misbilled as the Laugh of Four Continents. A subsequent production then in New York City was more carefully advertised and then garnered some success. So if it faced some failure, it was a kind of misunderstanding of mislabeling it. Just to remind and fresh your plot understanding, because now we are reaching towards the end. Act 1, Vladimir and Estragon are near a tree to wait for Godot. Pozzo and Lucky enter. Pozzo talks with Vladimir and Estragon. Lucky, dancing and thinking, makes them happy. After Pozzo and Lucky leave, a boy tells Vladimir and Godot will not come that evening. Vladimir and Estragon decide to leave, but they do not move as the curtain falls. And Act 1 stops here. Act 2, the next day, Vladimir and Estragon again near the tree to wait for Godot. We see them on the stage when we leave the first act, and we see them on the stage when we re-enter the second act. Pozzo and Lucky, however, enter again, but Pozzo is blind and Lucky is dumb. He cannot speak. Pozzo does not remember meeting the two men before. After they leave, Vladimir and Estragon continue to wait. And then the boy enters. He tells Vladimir, as usual, that Godot will not come today, however, will surely come tomorrow. He insists that he did not speak to Vladimir yesterday. After he leaves, Vladimir and Estragon decide to leave, but they do not move again, ending the play. This is all the play about technically. So it's dark comedy, it's black comedy, it's bleak. Dark comedy or black comedy refers to fictional work that blend aspects of the genres of tragedy and comedy. In English literature, from Shakespeare's time to the 19th century, tragicomedy refers to a serious play with a happy ending. However, dark and bleak comedy may end up with a static plot. So I gave you this short recap of the plot to point out towards this its static nature, its stagnant nature. A play starts from a point, moves into a circle, and ends up on the same point. Nothing happening in terms of development or progress or any type of change. So that is why we call it black comedy. Now, one question that would be flashing in your heads is, who or what is this Godot? Well, Beckett says, if I knew, I would have said so in the play, when he's asked about this question. So the uncertainties and irreducible ambiguities are an essential element of its total impact. It's not about the name of Godot, it's about everything in this play. In Waiting for Godot, the feeling of uncertainty it produces, the ebb and flow of this uncertainty from the hope of discovering the identity of Godot to its repeated disappointment are themselves the essence of the play. Basically, this is meant by the play. The ambiguity is embedded on purpose. So if you feel confused, if you feel what a big chaos is this, if you feel ambiguous, this is what writer wanted to achieve as told by the critics. Beckett's play lack plot even more completely than other works of the theatre of the absurd, and that is why it is called the most famous absurdist drama, because it lacks plot even more completely than any other work of the absurd theatre. Instead of linear development presented is Beckett's intuition of the human condition by a method that is essentially polyphonic. Alright, so Waiting for Godot does not tell a story, it explores a static situation, and that is why we call it black comedy. The sequence of event and the dialogue in each act are different. They encounter Pozzo and Lucky under differing circumstances. They attempt suicide and fail for different reasons. The boy arrives but does not recognize our protagonist and tells them Mr. Godot cannot come. Variations merely serve to emphasize the essential sameness of the situation. So you will find trivial kind of variation in this play, however, that is to emphasize the sameness. As we say, you may find the comic elements, however, these comic elements to emphasize the tragedy of the play. So same is the case with the variation in the events of the both acts. So Beckett often focused on the idea of the suffering of being. Most of the play deals with the fact that Estragon and Vladimir are waiting for something to elevate their boredom. Life is meaningless. It's nothing. It's for nothing. It's because of nothing. Godot can be understood as one of the many things in life that people wait for. It can be anything. It's mere hope. It's waiting for something new. The play has often been viewed as fundamentally existentialist in its take on life. That is very important. The fact that none of the characters retain a clear mental history or memory means that they are constantly struggling to prove their existence, their being. Waiting for Godot is part of the theatre of the absurd. This implies that it is meant to be irrational. It has to be irrational. It has to be ambiguous. It has to be chaotic and confusing. Absurd theatre does away with the concept of drama, chronological plot, logical language, logical themes, recognizable settings, and things that you can really relate with. This is also a split between the intellect and the body within the work. Thus, Vladimir represents the intellect and Estragon the body, both of whom cannot exist without the other. You remember we discussed the theme of companionship, and I asked you, why do you think they would want to be together? So you may get points from here when we are analyzing it. All right. So if we are analyzing its setting and structure, we can see that a play has a circular structure, ongoing like a wheel of a cycle. It ends almost exactly as it begins with. The two acts are symmetrically built. The stage is divided into two halves by a tree. The human races into two, Vladimir and Estragon. It is pervaded by a grotesque humor. Its tone is tragic and desperate. Okay, so after our discussion based on analytical setting and structure of the drama Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett, I would want you to complete your watch of the movie, of the drama that was basically a theatrical performance. You already had watched it for a few minutes, probably 20-25 minutes in 14th lecture, and we are going to continue our watch, and let's see how far we can watch it now in this lecture. However, at the same time, I would like to say, since we do not have enough time to watch all the movies during our talk and discussions, what we will make sure, being a resource end, that we are able to attach somehow these resources to your resource pack. So any watch that is left in the middle somehow for some reasons, you can complete it on your own. So in this today's watch, what we are going to focus on primarily, this will basically be a move from Act 1 to the Act 2 of the drama. We understand that the drama Waiting for Godot is a two-act play by Samuel Beckett, and there is, although there is a lot of movement, however, there is very less action, and most of the action is repeated for certain reasons that we mutually understand. So in this watch you will see a lot of repetition, a lot of repetitions of dialogues, of the movements. They are, and you know that there are reasons behind which are embedded by Samuel Beckett. And this precise watch will take you from one act to the other act, building up on the story, building up on the conflict, and making you knowing all four characters in detail. And in this watch you will be able to see the boy for the second time who comes again and tells that Godot will not be coming the second evening as well. And I hope that this watch will enable you to understand the dramatic scenario that Beckett wanted to create, where he did not want to use language as the prime medium of communication. So you will see movement and the correspondence where certain other elements are used and mediums are used to convey the message, how stronger they are in communicating the message that Beckett wanted to convey through the drama. The movements, the taking off and putting on boots, use of hats, the movement, haphazard movements between all four characters. I hope all of these things will enable you to understand and to extend on your understanding based off this drama. So let's have the movie watch now.
Closer. Back. Further. Stop. That is why, with your permission, I propose to dally with you a moment before I venture any further. Basket. The fresh air stimulates the jaded appetite. Basket. Further. He stinks. Happy days. Psst.
What ails him?
He looks tired.
And why doesn't he put down his bags?
How do I know?
Careful. Say something to him.
Look!
What?
His neck!
Oh, I say!
A running sore!
It's the rope.
The rubbing.
It's inevitable.
Well, not.
It's the chafing.
He's not bad looking.
Would you say so?
A trifle effeminate.
Look at the slobber.
It's inevitable.
Look at the slaver.
Perhaps he's a half-wit.
A cretin.
Looks like a goiter.
It's not certain.
He's panting.
It's inevitable.
And his eyes,
What about him?
goggling out of his head.
Huh? He looks at his last gasp to me.
It's not certain. Ask him a question.
Would that be a good thing?
Well, what do we risk?
Mister!
Louder.
Mister!
Leave him in peace. Can't you see he wants to rest? Basket. Basket. That's better.
Please, sir.
What is it, my good man?
You finish with the... You won't be needing the bones, sir.
You couldn't have waited.
No, no, he does well to ask. Do I need the bones? No. Personally, I do not need them anymore. But in theory, the bones go to the carrier. He is therefore the one to ask. Go on, don't be afraid. Ask him, he'll tell you.
Mister. Excuse me, mister.
You're being spoken to, pig. Reply. Try him again.
Excuse me, mister. The bones. You won't be needing the bones.
Mister. Reply, pig. Do you want them or don't you? They're yours. I don't like it. I've never known him to refuse a bone before. Nice business it'd be if he fell sick on me.
It's a scandal!
Are you alluding to anything in particular?
To treat a man like that, I think that... No, a human being. No, it's a scandal.
A disgrace.
You are severe. What age are you, if it's not a rude question? 60? 70? What age would you say he was?
11.
I am impertinent. I must be getting on. Thank you for your society. Unless I smoke another pipe before I go. What do you say? Oh, I'm only a small smoker. A very small smoker. It makes my heart go pit-a-pat. It's the nicotine. One absorbs it in spite of one's precautions. You know how it is. But perhaps you don't smoke? Yes? No? It's of no importance. But how am I to sit down? Now, without affectation, now that I have risen, without appearing to, how shall I say, without appearing to falter. I beg your pardon. Perhaps you didn't speak. It's of no importance. Let me see.
Oh, that's better.
Let's go.
So soon?
One moment. Stool! More. There.
Stop it. Let's go.
I hope I'm not driving you away. Wait a little longer. You'll never regret it.
Oh, we're in no hurry.
And the second is never so sweet. As the first, that is. But it's sweet just the same.
I'm going.
Suppose you go now while it is still day. For there is no denying it is still day. Good. What happens in that case to your appointment with this Godot? Godot, anyhow, you see who I mean. Who has your future in his hands. At least your immediate future.
Who told you?
He speaks to me again. If this goes on much longer, we shall soon be old friends.
Why doesn't he put down his bags?
I too shall be happy to meet him. The more people I meet, the happier I become. From the meanest creature one departs, richer, wiser, more conscious of one's blessings. Even you. Who knows, even you would have added to my store.
Why doesn't he put down his bags?
That would surprise me.
You've been asked a question.
A question? Oh, what? A moment ago you were calling me sir in fear and trembling. Now you're asking me questions. No good will come of this.
I think he's listening.
What?
You can ask him now. He's on the alert.
Ask him what?
Why he doesn't put down his bags.
I wonder.
Ask him, can't you?
You want to know why he doesn't put down his bags, as you call them?
That's it.
You are sure you agree with that?
He's puffing like a Krampus.
The answer is this. But be still, I beg of you. You're making me nervous.
Here, he's about to speak.
Is everybody ready? Is everybody looking at me? Will you look at me, pig? Good. I am ready. Is everybody listening? Hog! Is everybody ready? I don't like talking in a vacuum. Good. me see.
I'm gone.
What was it exactly you wanted to know?
Why
Don't
he doesn't put down...
interrupt me! If we all speak at once, we shall never get anywhere. What was I saying? What was I saying?
Bags. Why? Always hold. Never put down. Why?
Ah, why couldn't you say so before? Why he doesn't make himself comfortable? Let's try and get this clear. Has he not the right to? Certainly he has. It follows that he doesn't want to. There's reasoning for you. And why doesn't he want to? The reason is this.
Make a note of this.
He wants to impress me so that I'll keep him.
What?
Perhaps I haven't got it quite right. He wants to mollify me so that I give up the idea of parting with him. No, it's not exactly it either.
You want to get rid of
He
him?
wants to con me, but he won't.
You want to get rid of him?
He imagines that when I see how well he carries, I'll be tempted to keep him on in that capacity.
You've had enough of
In
him.
reality, he carries like a pig. It's not his job.
You want to get rid of him?
He imagines that when I see him indefatigable, I'll regret my decision. Such is his miserable scheme. As though I were short of slaves. Atlas, son of Japetos. Well, that's that, I think. Anything else?
You want to get rid of him?
Remarked that I might just as well have been in his shoes and he in mine, had chance not willed otherwise. To each one his due.
You want to get rid of him?
I beg your pardon.
You want to get rid of him?
I do. But instead of driving him away as I might have done, I mean instead of simply kicking him out on his ass, in the goodness of my heart, I am bringing him to the fair, where I hope to get a good price for him. The truth is, you can't drive such creatures away. The best thing would be to kill them.
Ah, he's crying.
Old dogs have more dignity. Comfort him, since you pity him. Come on. Wipe away his tears. He'll feel less forsaken.
Here, give it to me. I'll do it.
We'll make haste before he stops.
That's mine! He's gripping me! So,
I told you he didn't like strangers.
he's bleeding.
It's a good sign. He has stopped crying. You have replaced him, as it were. The tears of the world are a constant quantity. But each one who starts to weep somewhere else, another stops. The same is true of the laugh. Let us not then speak ill of our generation. It is not any unhappier than its predecessors. Let us not speak well of it either. Let us not speak of it at all. It is true. The population has increased.
Will night never come?
Guess who taught me all these beautiful things? My lucky. But for him, all my thoughts, all my feelings would have been of common things. Professional worries. Beauty, grace, truth of the first water. I knew they were beyond me. So, I took a Canuck.
A Canuck?
That was nearly 60 years ago. Yes, nearly 60. You wouldn't think it to look at me, would you? Compared to him, I look like a young man. No? Hat. Now look. Well, did you see?
And now you turn him away. Such an old and faithful servant.
Swine.
After having sucked all the good out of him, you chuck him away like a banana skin. Really?
I can't bear it any longer. The way he goes on, you've no idea. It's terrible. I'm going mad. He must go. I can't bear it any longer.
He can't bear it
Any longer?
He's going mad.
It's terrible.
How dare you? It's abominable. Such a good master, crucify him like that after so many years, really.
He used to be so kind, so helpful and entertaining, my good angel, and now he's killing me.
Does he want to replace him?
I don't know.
Ask him.
Gentlemen, I don't know what came over me. Forgive me. Forget all that I said. I don't remember exactly what it was, but you may be sure there wasn't a word of truth in it. Do I look like a man who can be made to suffer? Frankly. What have I done with my pipe?
Charming evening we're having.
Unforgettable.
And it's not over.
Apparently not.
It's only beginning.
It's awful.
Worse than the pantomime.
The circus.
The musical.
The circus.
What have I done with that briar?
He's a scream. He's lost his duty.
I'll be back.
And the corridor on the left.
Keep my seat.
I've lost my cap and Peterson.
He's been the death of me.
You didn't buy any Oh, he's gone. And without even saying goodbye. How could he? He might have waited.
He would have burst.
Oh, well, in that case.
Come here.
What?
You'll see.
You want me to get up?
Quick! Look!
Oh, I say.
Ah, it's all over.
He's not pleased.
You missed the treat. Pity.
He subsides. Indeed, all subsides. A great calm descends. Listen. Pan sleeps.
Will night never come?
You don't feel like going till it does.
Oh, will you see
Well, it's
the-
very natural. Very natural. I myself, in your situation, if I had an appointment with a Godot. Anyhow, you see who I mean. I should wait until it was black night before I gave up. I should very much like to sit down, but I'm not quite sure how to go about it.
Could I be of any help?
If you ask me, perhaps.
What?
If you ask me to sit.
Would that be a help?
I fancy so.
Oh, well, here we go. Be seated, sir. I beg of you.
No, I wouldn't dream of it. Ask me again.
Come, take a seat. I beseech you. You'll catch pneumonia.
You really think so?
It's absolutely certain.
No doubt you are right. Thank you, dear fellow. Done it again. But I must be getting on if I'm to observe my schedule.
Time has stopped.
Don't you believe it, sir? Don't you believe it? Whatever you like, but not that.
Everything seems black to him today.
Except the firmament. Oh, but I see what it is. You are not from these parts. You don't know what our twilights can do. Shall I tell you? I can't refuse you. Where was I?
Let's go.
Ah, yes, the night. Look. Will you look at the sky, pig? Good, that's enough. What is there so extraordinary about it? Qua sky. It is pale and luminous, like any sky at this hour of the day, at this time of the year, in these latitudes, when the weather is fine. An hour ago, roughly, after having poured forth ever since say 10 o'clock in the morning, tirelessly torrents of red and white light. It begins to lose its effulgence, to grow pale, pale, ever a little paler, a little paler, until finished, it comes to rest. But behind this veil of gentleness and peace, night is charging and will burst upon us. Pop! Like that. Just when you least expect it. And that's how it is on this bitch of an earth.
So long as one knows.
One can bide one's time.
One knows what to expect.
No further need to worry.
Simply wait.
We're used to it.
Gentlemen, how did you find me? Good? Fair? Middling? Poor? Positively bad?
Oh, very good. Very, very good.
Medusa.
Oh, très bon. Très bon.
Bless you, gentlemen. Bless you. I have such need of encouragement. I weakened a little towards the end. You didn't notice?
Oh, perhaps just a teeny-weeny little bit.
I thought it was intentional.
You see, my memory is defective.
In the meantime, nothing happens.
You find that tedious?
Somewhat.
Adieu, sir.
I've been better entertained.
Gentlemen, you have been civil to me.
Oh, not at all.
What an idea.
Yes, yes. You have been correct. So that I ask myself, is there anything I can do in my turn for these honest fellows who are having such a dull time?
Even 50 pence would be a help.
We are not beggars.
Is there anything I can do? That's what I ask myself, to cheer them up. I have given them bones, it is true. I have talked to them of this and that. I have explained the twilight, admittedly, but is it enough? That's what tortures me. Is it enough?
Even 25?
That's enough.
I couldn't accept less.
Is it enough? No doubt. But I am liberal. It's my nature. This evening, so much the worse for me. For I shall suffer. No doubt about that. What do you prefer? Shall we have him dance? Or sing? Or recite? Or think?
Who?
Or who? You know how to think, you two.
He thinks.
Certainly, aloud. He even used to think very prettily once. I could listen to him for hours. Now, so much the worse for me. Well, shall we have him think something for us?
I'd rather he dance. It'd be more fun.
Not necessarily.
Wouldn't it, Edie? Be more fun.
I'd like well to hear him think.
Perhaps he could dance first and think afterwards, if it's not too much to ask him.
Would that be possible?
By all means. Nothing simpler. It's the natural order.
Then let him dance.
You hear, Hog?
He never refuses.
He refused once. Dance, misery.
Is that all?
Encore.
I could do as well myself. With a little practice.
He's tired.
He used to dance the farandole, the fling, the brawl, the jig, the fandango, even the hornpipe. He capered for joy. No, that's the best he can do. Do you know what he calls it?
The scapegoat's agony.
The hard stool.
The net. He thinks he's entangled in a net.
Nobody comes. Nobody goes. It's awful.
Tell him to think.
Give him his hat.
His hat.
He can't think without his hat.
Give him his hat.
Me? After what he did to me? Never.
I'll give it to him.
Tell him to fetch it.
It's better to give it to him.
I'll give it to him.
You must put it on his head.
Tell him to take it.
It's better to put it on his head.
I'll put it on his head.
What's he waiting for?
Stand back. Think, pig. Stop. Forward. Stop. Think.
On the other hand, with regard to...
Stop. Back. Stop. Think.
Given the existence as uttered forth in the public works of Puncher and Watman of a personal God, qua, 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 with white beard, qua, 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 outside time, without extension, who from the heights of divine apathia, divine athambia, divine aphasia, loves us dearly, with some exceptions, for reasons unknown, but time will tell, and suffers like the divine Miranda with those who, for reasons unknown, but time will tell, are plunged in torment, plunged in fire, whose fire flames, if that continues, and who can doubt it, will fire the firmament, that is to say, blast hell to heaven. So blue, still, and calm. So calm with a calm which, even though intermittent, is better than nothing, but not so fast. And considering what is more, that as a result of the labors left unfinished, crowned by the Academy of Anthropometry of Essie and Posse of Testu and Cunard, it is established beyond all doubt, all other doubt than that which clings to the labors of men, that as a result of the labors unfinished of Testu and Cunard, it is established as hereinafter, but not so fast, for reasons unknown, that as a result of the public works of Puncher and Watman, it is established beyond all doubt, that in view of the labors of Fartov and Belcher, left unfinished, for reasons unknown, of Testu and Cunard, left unfinished, it is established what many deny, that man in Posse of Testu and Cunard, that man in Essie, that man in Short, that man in Brief, in spite of the strides of alimentation and defecation, is seen to waste and pine.
Okay, so you definitely had enjoyed your watch. I regret that you will not be able to watch the whole of this into this lecture. We will see if we are able to manage it somehow in our following lectures. However, if we are not, we will try to attach this as one of your resources to complete your watch on your own end. So this was all about today's talk. The lecture 18 was basically based on the symbolism, imagery and allegory used in Waiting for Godot. We also discussed the setting and the tone, style and title of the play. We also discussed the drama as Booker's 7 basic plots, and we analyzed the plot as a tragedy plot. We also had a word about the social acceptance of Waiting for Godot, and we critically analyzed the text in that light. And I hope that the coming lecture will help us understand the drama as an introduction to its philosophical background, and where we will be able to discuss the theatre of absurd, existentialism and the paradox of consciousness. All three very important concepts for your understanding of this type of drama that has black comedy inside. We will also be taking time out to discuss and to have a critical analysis of the analytical mapping of characters. I'm not sure whether we have enough time when we are discussing all three very significant aspects of the drama: the theatre of absurd, existentialism, and paradox of consciousness. However, this is the part of the agenda that we have to complete in our following lectures. This was all for today's talk. I will see you in the next talk, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.